Kof Ma'u Cheshvan, Monday the 29th of October, Rabbi Gedalia Lieberman, Muktzah.
Morning. Rav Yanki just left off with a question why Hagoshem and Hageshem. I don't know the answer, but I once heard there's also, when it comes to Ber Priagofen, there's also two Neschois, Ber Priagofen and Ber Priagefen. And I once heard the correct Nusach is Ber Priagefen, because even if you're not about Korah, you know that if it's a comment, it's the end of the Pasuk. And when you're drinking wine, you don't stop drinking. So Hagefen is the right one. Okay, so. Decided to speak about halachas of Muktzah. Generally speaking about the halachas of Shabbos is always the right time. The Baal HaTanya writes in Igeres HaKodesh, in the Sefer Igeres HaKodesh, that in Shul he asks that in the Shuls for Mincha on Shabbos there should be a shir in Hilchos Shabbos. And he says without knowing the halachas it's very difficult not to be nichshel, impossible not to be nichshel. And he says befrat b'divrei Sofrim, specifically the Rabbanons, which Chamurim divrei Sofrim, Yosem divrei Torah. Where the protim are so many, the details are so many, and then he says befrat b'ilchos Muktzah, specifically Muktzah. So Muktzah is the example where there's so many details, so much to learn, and obviously in the half an hour that we have, we can't cover, we can't attempt to cover even all of Hilchos Muktzah or different. But we'll take a few protim in Hilchos Muktzah, and for some, I imagine some protim will be Chazara, which is also important. And in Beis HaMedrash V'lo Chidush, I hope there'll be some additions as well. And as I've done before, I'd like to speak through the lens of a specific shaila because it makes it a little bit easier to follow, a bit more engaging. So we'll start with a story that will pretend happened this Friday night. So Friday night, after I finished my Sudas Shabbos, my children told me that they want dessert. What do you want for dessert? Ice cream. Now it's freezing cold winter, but they don't know winter, summer. Ice cream has sugar inside. They want the ice cream. So I go to the freezer, and you have different kinds of freezers, but the freezer that I have is these little drawers that you have to pull out. And in one of the drawers, there's some ice cream. And the problem is, in that drawer of the freezer, there's also chicken, frozen raw meat, and that obviously makes a shaila nor boira of muktzah. Yeah, it could be boira shailas also theoretically, but raw chicken and raw meat. Yeah. So in the drawer of the freezer. So the question is, I mean, generally what I think we'll discuss today is first of all briefly we'll discuss the halacha of raw chicken, whether it's muktzah or not, raw meat, whether it's muktzah or not. And then we're going to have to work out the dinim of bosses. I'm just going to give you an outline of what the shir is going to be. We'll work out the dinim of bosses, whether the drawer is a bosses, bosses is leheta. Those that aren't familiar, I'll explain in a couple of minutes. And we'll also discuss a little bit the dinim of kila achrayad, of moving something kila achrayad. But most of the time of the shir, I believe, we'll discuss the dinim of bosses. Let's see how things go. So the first shaila is, what's the din of the raw chicken and raw meat? I'm not going to go into this share the fact that it's frozen, how that influences it, but the ma'isa, the fact that it's frozen, pashtus doesn't make a big difference. That won't. But the issue is that it's raw. That's right. The issue is raw. So generally, all macholim, we say ein muktzah, Reb Shimon el Gregus, it's a mukim bavad. Generally, any food is not muktzah, but that's all if it has a din of a food. And in order to have a din of a food, it has to be roy lachila, it has to be edible, something which isn't edible. So it's like eitzim avonim, it's like a stone on Shabbos, which is muktzah midayitcho, it's totally muktzah. So the question is raw meat and raw chicken edible? So the truth is, the halach in Shulchan Aruch, it's in Simon Chesif Lamed Aleph, it says basar chai, raw meat, bein toffel, bein maluach, whether it's salted, whether it's already been salted, or whether it hasn't yet even been salted. It's not muktzah, mutar taltalo, you're allowed to move it on Shabbos, because the chazi le'umtzah, it is ra'oi. You're able to eat it. There's a kind of meichel called umtzah. That's what it's called, eating raw meat. Uncooked. Raw meat, uncooked. So the halacha says that it's raw to eat. Obviously, it's not the common food, but the halacha says it's raw to eat. And the next halacha, the halacha Lamed Beis, how can you eat it if it's not salted? So that the truth is, this halacha is a brisa in Peirit Mefanim in Shabbos. And over there, Tosfos points out that from this Gemara you see that you can eat raw meat even before it's been salted. That's a din in your Yerideus and Mesavach Zayin, that the dam, evorim, the blood which is a balua in meat or in chicken, is only an issue after it's moved from its original place. After you cook it, you have a shaila, or after you begin to salt it. But if it's as long as it's raw, mitzad the dinim of kashrus, you only have to rinse it and then you can eat it. But when it gets to muktzah, the halacha is roi lachila. That's what it seems to say in Shulchan Aruch. And the next halacha, Simon Lamed Beis, Simon Lamed Beis says, dag maluach, salted fish is not muktzah, so herring isn't muktzah. But dag toffel, raw fish, which hasn't been salted, is totally muktzah. It's not roi for anything. Why is it not roi for animals? It's not, the plan isn't to give it to animals. After Shabbos you can cook it, so it's totally not roi. So raw fish is muktzah. So if anybody enjoys the sushi on Shabbos, you have a problem, the sushi is muktzah. Obviously, today sushi isn't muktzah, because muktzah depends on the mokkah man. It depends on the time and place, and if we've decided to start eating raw fish, and enjoy it, so then obviously it becomes ois muktzah. That's when you get to raw fish. However, raw chicken, it says, is not muktzah even in Shulchan Aruch because it's roi lachila, raw chicken or meat. Now, however, it's not so pashut. It's not so pashut. So first of all, I'll discuss in a moment, because I imagine people are already thinking, today we don't eat raw chicken. I think most of us over here, or raw meat. But before that, let me just point out that there is a major machloikus over there. Although the Shulchan Aruch talks about basachai, raw meat, the Magen Avraham says that is only raw chicken, psar avos, duck, or psar yoina, which are softer sort of meat. A soft sort of meat like chicken, so that says the Magen Avraham, that's what's roi lachila. Whereas psar shoyer, what we call meat, cow meat, is not roi lachila according to Magen Avraham, and he lists a long list of rishonim that he holds all imply that way, that only psar oif is not roi lachila, whereas I'm sorry, thank you, only psar oif is roi lachila, whereas meat is not roi lachila. So that's the Magen Avraham. The Taz argues and he learns that both meat and chicken are roi lachila. However, the Magen Avraham is machmer, Shulchan Aruch Harav, Paskin like the Magen Avraham, Kedartoi. The Mishnah Brura says that b'shas hefsed, in the time of a loss, there's going to be, practically that would mean if your freezer is broken down and you have to move things, etc. If there's going to be a hefsed maruba, I think he says, if there's a large loss of money, so then you can rely on the lenient opinion to say that both chicken and meat are not muktzah. However, if it's not a time of hefsed maruba, lechatchila, you should look at both. You should look at raw meat as muktzah. So therefore, if I have raw meat in the freezer, that's certainly muktzah in my scenario where there's no hefsed involved, there's no loss involved. I just want to open the drawer of the freezer in order to get the ice cream. The raw meat I certainly have to look at as muktzah. The truth is, with pashtus, the raw chicken, I also have to look at as muktzah. Because that's like we said a moment ago, that the Shulchan Aruch says raw fish is unedible. But now we say things have changed and we can eat the raw fish. So mainly the pashtus works the same way the other way around. Although raw chicken in the time of the Gemara and quoted the Halacha in Shulchan Aruch is not muktzah because some people eat it, but today nobody eats raw chicken. Everybody considers raw potatoes as muktzah, or raw pasta before it's cooked as muktzah. So raw chicken is not more edible than any of those things. Nobody would eat raw chicken before they eat a raw potato, I think. And therefore, l'ch'oira today it becomes muktzah. There are a number of poskim that say so explicitly. The Aruch HaShulchan, which is says that nowadays it's certain that raw chicken would have a din of muktzah. Similarly, the Mizgeres HaShulchan, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Rav Moshe Feinstein in the Tshuva in Chaim Siman Hey, Chelik Hey, Siman Chav Beis, also takes a pashtus that nowadays raw chicken and meat are all muktzah. There are other achronim poskim, modern day poskim that are more mekel. Shalom Zalman is quoted in Shmir Shabbat Kachasa saying that in the Kohen Hefsed you could rely on the pashtus of Shulchan Aruch. That raw chicken is not muktzah. Similarly, there are others. So it could be in a place of hefsed, or if there's a great need, there is room to be lenient, to follow the rules of Shulchan Aruch, that raw chicken and meat isn't muktzah. The Hezbollah, we're not going to go into now. It's also, the truth is I don't understand it so well. There are those that say that it's very difficult for Michael to be muktzah because if you're desperate enough, you're going to eat it. It's a bar to the Eretz Sameach. But l'choira, it's clear in Shulchan Aruch that raw fish is muktzah, although it clearly doesn't kill you, and nevertheless, people didn't eat it in the time of the Gemara, and that makes it muktzah. So I don't see why raw chicken and raw meat shouldn't have the same din nowadays. Either way,
Raw meat.
Huh?
You eat regular raw meat.
Certain kinds of meat could be eaten, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah, so that wouldn't be muktzah, obviously, what they eat in South Africa. That's right.
Whether he moved the drawer or not.
But we'll get to that. Yeah. First, I'm just discussing the din of the meat. What we've got to so far is this: that lechatchila, in a normal circumstances, without any great need, both the raw chicken and the raw meat all have a din of muktzah. So now we have a problem. And the problem is, am I allowed to open the drawer? Because we all know that there's a din on Shabbos of bosses, which in a nutshell, the din is that if you put a muktzah item on a non-muktzah item before Shabbos I put a muktzah item on a non-muktzah item, and my intention is that the muktzah item should be placed on the non-muktzah item when Shabbos comes in. The non-muktzah item becomes muktzah kamoyu, becomes as muktzah as the muktzah item. That's a basic din. In the Gemara, it talks about there's a number of cases. One of them is an even alachovis. If you have a barrel of wine, there's wine inside the barrel, there's a stone on top of the barrel, and the stone is muktzah in this case. There would be ways to make a stone not muktzah, but in this case of the Gemara, the stone is muktzah. I mean, maybe we'll just say it how the Gemara says it. It's a Mishnah that says, even shall be a chovis, if you have a stone on a barrel. So the Mishnah talks about whether you could tip the barrel and tip the stone off. And the Gemara says, that's all b'shecheach, if the stone is there by accident. But if the stone is there, if you specifically have placed the stone on the barrel before Shabbos, and the intention was that the stone should be sitting on the barrel on Shabbos, the barrel becomes muktzah. The barrel becomes muktzah, and as muktzah as the stone is. Even if you take the stone off on Shabbos, if a guy takes the stone off on Shabbos, or whatever happens, the stone comes off, the barrel remains muktzah. That's the din of bosses, which I believe everybody is familiar with it. The practical application that we bump into more often is Friday night. Some people like Shabbos candles next to the table, but some people like the Shabbos candles on the table. If you like the Shabbos candles on the table, so we all know that there's an issue. You can't move the Shabbos candles afterwards. Why can't you move the Shabbos candles afterwards? The Shabbos candles, with pashtus, should have a din of a kli shemalachta issa, a keli which its function is issa. And we all know the basic din of muktzah, and let me just point out that I'm going through the shir. The idea is also the chaz of the din of muktzah, not only to get to the answer to my shaila, and Mamela, the details are important as well, just to remember what's the basic din of a kli shemalachta issa, a keli which its function is issa. So we all know you're allowed to move it. If you need the space, you're allowed to move it. If you want to use it for something else, you're allowed to move it. So therefore, if I have a pen. A pen on Shabbos is no more muktzah than a keli shemalachta le'isa. And Mamela, if you need the space, there's no shaila to move the pen on Shabbos if you need a space. Similarly to tzorech gufa, if you want to scratch your back with a pen, it's not a shaila. It's straightforward. Emma says there is a little bit of a shaila involved, scratching your back. The Mishnah Berurah says, which is a chumrah and a bit of a chiddush, that to use a kli shemalachta le'isa is l'tzorech gufa. If you want to use it, it's only if you don't have a better option, another option. It's only if you have to. So mainly scratching your back with a pen, it's better to use something else if you have something else. But l'tzorech mekaymo, if you need the space, there's no problem with moving a pen, or the pashtus of phone is also no worse than a kli shemalachta le'isa. You've left your phone somewhere, you need to use the space. For pashtus, there is no problem moving it. It could be if it's the latest phone and it's expensive, then you might bump into a shaila of muktzah machsor and kiss. If something's very valuable, so then it might become fully muktzah. But generally, a kli shemalachta le'isa is only partially muktzah. You're allowed to move it for lots of things. So what's the issue with moving the Shabbos candles from the table? Why can't I just pick up the Shabbos candles and move them if I need the space? So the reason is, the Gemara says, the reason is because since the Shabbos came in, you lit the candles, so the flame is totally muktzah. There is a discussion of why is a flame totally muktzah. It's something which is difficult to understand. But either way, the Gemara is clear and explicit that a flame is totally muktzah. So since the flame is muktzah, so the candle is a bossis, is serving the flame. It's a base to the flame, and the candlesticks are a bosses to a candle, which is a bosses to the flame, and therefore the candlesticks become muktzah as well. They become fully muktzah. And when the flame goes as muktzah as the flame, it's the highest level of muktzah. And when the muktzah goes out, when the flame goes out, it doesn't make a difference, because the rule is migud is katzoy lebein hashmoshes. If something is muktzah when Shabbos comes in, it remains muktzah the whole Shabbos. So therefore, the candlesticks are muktzah. That's the issue with moving the candlesticks. And as we all know, that the problem doesn't just extend to the candlesticks, it extends to the table as well. The table is also an issue. Because since the table is serving the candlesticks are sitting on the table, so the table also becomes muktzah. And therefore, I believe everybody knows if you light the candlesticks on Shabbos, if that's the only thing on the table, so then the table is a bossis to the candlesticks, and it's forbidden to move the table on Shabbos.
If the candles are on a single tray.
If they're on a tray, and a silver tray, and the silver tray is sitting on the table, that doesn't help. The silver tray becomes a bosses to the candles, and the table becomes a bosses to the silver tray, and everything becomes muktzah. Unless you solve the problem with the challah, which we'll get to in a moment. But the pen is a klisha malachta l'issa. It's not fully muktzah. A pen is a klisha malachta l'issa. It's a keli which is function as issa. In muktzah, there's different levels of muktzah. The highest level of muktzah is something like a stone or a flame or raw meat. Those are the highest level of muktzah. Something which doesn't have, which isn't a keli at all. Or muktzah machzor and kiss, something which is very valuable, maybe an instrument. But there is a lower level of muktzah. That which we're used to for some reason, feeling. Is the greater level of muktzah, so anything which is an electrical appliance and a pen, and that's all a keli shemlach l'issa. It's a keli, it has a use, its function is issa, and that's a partial muktzah. According to many poskim, the word muktzah is the wrong word. Others use the word muktzah for keli shemlach l'issa, and some don't even use the word muktzah. The din is a keli shemlach l'issa is partially muktzah. You're not allowed to move it l'tzorech atzmai to protect it, but you are allowed to move it l'tzorech gufoy u'mekoymai. So, although I know that people, when it comes to a stick or a stone, they feel maybe it's muktzah. When it comes to a pen or a phone, you feel that's properly muktzah, but it's the other way around. A stick or a stone, or a raw piece of chicken or a raw potato, pasta in the cupboard, that is properly muktzah. It cannot be moved under any circumstances. And a pen, a phone, a pot, and any other examples of a keli, a hammer, a shofar, pashtus, are all a keli shemalach l'issa, a keli which its function is issa, and there you're allowed to move it. If you need to use it. If you need to use it for heti, you're allowed to use it. Or if you need the space, you're allowed to move it. That's a straightforward din in Hilchos Muktzah.
The bosses, you're saying goes all the way down.
Yeah. That's more like a neir shem and a psila and a bosses dava also. Yeah. The bosses becomes muktzah like the item of muktzah itself, maybe with a few exceptions. But the Lashon Shulchan Aruch nesa kamoyu. It becomes like the muktzah. So once the candlesticks have become muktzah because they're bosses to the flame, the candlesticks themselves. If I didn't light the candles on Shabbos. I didn't like them, they're just sitting on the table. Well, I'll tell you an interesting thing. According to many poskim, it has to be muktzah kol, in order to be a boss, it has to be muktzah kol bein hashmoshes. The entire bein hashmoshes. So if you didn't light the candles on time, you didn't make it, so there is a din in Shulchan Aruch that you call a goy, but still bein hashmoshes, you can have a goy light the candle for you. Now he lit that candle bein hashmoshes. It wasn't light the whole bein hashmoshes. In that case, there's no din of bosses. And therefore the candlestick remains a kli shemlach l'issa. It remains original din. You can move that candlestick. So besides the interesting din of having the goy like the Shabbos candle on it makes a bracha, you have an interesting afyaminah for Hilchos Muktzah. That you can move the candlestick. Because it's only a kli shemlach l'issa. The other poskim that discuss whether the silver candlesticks today would have a din of muktzah machzor and kiss. We'll go into that, but the simple halacha is the candlesticks are only a kli shemlach l'issa. Bekitza, so that's the din of bosses. So now when I come to the drawer of my freezer, so I want to open the drawer, I have an issue. There's raw meat and raw chicken in the drawer of the freezer. And I placed it there before Shabbos, in order to be there for Shabbos. So not just the problem is the raw chicken and the raw meat. The drawer is now muktzah. That's the drawer is muktzah. So I can't open the drawer. Except, you're not moving the freezer, you're moving the door of the freezer, and it gets a bit more complicated. The other shelves that don't have the raw chicken and raw meat I'll be able to move, but the shelf that has in it the raw chicken and the raw meat and the ice cream, l'choira is a basis davos. So I'm sure some people are thinking, 1 minute, but it's a basis davos v'amuta. There's also ice cream inside. We all know that what do you do if you want to move the table on Shabbos, you want to be allowed to move the table on Shabbos, you put a challah on the table, and the challah is mutter. And then we say the table is not just serving the flame, it's also serving the challah. It's a basis, it's serving issa and heta, and then the din is, it doesn't become muktzah. This is a Gemara, that Rav was called knuna agav kitmo. It's a frying pan that had ashes inside, even though there were also shivrei eitzim inside. That's the Gemara. The ashes in the case of the Gemara weren't muktzah, because we set them aside before Shabbos to use them to cover dirt, to cover dirty things. So the ashes were not muktzah, but there were also splinters of wood in the frying pan that were muktzah. And the din of the Gemara is that I think it was Rav who carried the frying pan, who moved this pan on Shabbos, because although it's a basis le'issa, it's serving issa, it's also serving heta. So that's the din basis le'issa or le'heta is mutter. So maybe I can say the same thing by the freezer, but it's not so posher, because the din is that basis le'issa or le'heta, the heta has to be choshev yoisa, has to be more choshev than the issa, has to be more important than the issa. For the children it is, but it's not their ice cream. And it follows the bailim. Oh, interesting, good point. And the din is, the Gemara says, it follows the bailim. it follows each owner what's more choshev. So mainly you're right, the children, there's no question that the ice cream is much more choshev than all of the chicken and the meat together. But for the owner, which is, I'm afraid, in this case, I'm afraid for the children, it's the adult who's the owner, the chicken and meat with pashtus is more choshev than the ice cream. Now it's a little bit difficult. How do you measure this din of choshev? It's a difficult Indian. It's not clear. Why is the challah more important than the candlesticks? Candlesticks are silver candlesticks. So they're the points who say that you're not following the candlesticks. The candlesticks isn't the issue. The muktzah is the shalheves, the flame. So you have to decide what's more important, the challah or the flame. No. How do you measure the value of the flame? How do you measure how choshev the flame is? So, again, it's something which isn't clear. It's not clear how to measure. The Rosh Shulchan Aruch and some of the points in Shulchan Aruch is challah has been l'tzoyrech Shabbos. A challah that you're going to need for Shabbos. The mashmos is that challah you need for Shabbos, since it's a mitzvah so the Shabbos, a challah that you need for Shabbos is more choshev because you need it for the Shabbos. So it's more choshev than the light that the flame gives you.
But then when the flame is gone, but then there's only you left with the silver.
The same question. It doesn't matter. Once the flame is gone, it doesn't matter because migud is katzoy ben hashmoshes. Everything is decided by ben hashmoshes time. So the kitzah. So it's a little difficult how to measure. Someone to taina that the way to measure is whatever now is more necessary. And since for Shabbos, in my case, the ice cream is more choshev for Shabbos than the muktzah, so maybe the ice cream is the ikar. But I think it's difficult to say that because besides the case of the flame, generally every muktzah you can't use on Shabbos. It's always the het is going to be more choshev than the yisra on Shabbos. The het you want to use, and the muktzah is not usable for Shabbos. So pashtus the word is although there is a din that the fact that you need it for Shabbos makes it choshev, the pshat l'choyre is that when you need it for Shabbos, it raises its cheshivas, and then you have to weigh out. In other words, ice cream I want it for Shabbos, so it's more choshev. So it's quite choshev because I want it. If I didn't want it, it wouldn't be important to me. On a cold day, I don't need ice cream. Ice cream is not important. Today, I realized the importance of the ice cream. But even after that, still I wouldn't keep the ice cream in place of a whole drawer of meat and frozen meat and frozen chicken. But pashtus, I think that the din is the meat of the chicken is more choshev. If it's equal, the place can also learn that it remains also. At least Mishnah Berurah learns that it's not so choshev. Mishnah Berurah learns that if it's equal, it remains also. It has to be that the heta, in my case, the ice cream is more choshev than the yisra. And since we don't have that, so I now have a problem. I actually have two problems. One is the freezer, one is the clock. But we're going to try and move forward with the freezer. Okay. The ice, so now I have a problem. The drawer is muktzah. So what do I do? The Seder. So I open the drawer, kalachayad. By the way, this I said, we'll pretend the story happened this Shabbos, but this happens very often. Every time I want to take the ice cream out of the freezer, I open the drawer, kalachayad, with the back of my hand. Solves the problem. There is a din. Brought in Shinid Aleph, it's a Mishnah, Hakash al-Gabi Amitta. The Mishnah says if you have straw on the bed, and the straw is muktzah, because you weren't planning to use it for a bed, you're planning to use the straw la soka to light a fire. So the din is, you can't move with your hands, it's muktzah, you can't straighten it out, but matafel be good for you. With your body, you're allowed to move it. And that's the din in Shinid Aleph. The Mechaber says that tiltul begufoy is mutter even a tzorich tova also. The simple halacha in Shulchan Aruch is that moving things with your begufoy, not directly with your hands, is mutter without any restrictions. That is the simple halacha in Shulchan Aruch. However, and that's where Shulchan Aruch Rav learns, that's where Mishnah Berurah learns, that's the simple halacha in Shulchan Aruch. L'maisa, there are poskim that are machmer, I think the Chayyim is more machmer, others are more machmer, there are poskim that are machmer, and therefore, if there's no tzorich, you shouldn't stam move things around on Shabbos. But when there is a need, the simple halacha is that you're allowed to move something begufoy. What's called begufoy? So, the Rebbe says in the Rashi says the Lashon begufoy, u'kalachar yod in the back of your hand. The Pashtus kalachar yod is okay, the back of your hand is okay. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein in the same tshuva, Chelik Hey Simcha Peis, he's mistapik, he has a doubt whether the back of your hand is called kalachar yod, whether it's called back of the hand. An interesting sophic. He says since it's not so unusual, it's not so strange to do things kalachar yod with the back of your hand, so he's a sophic whether kalachar yod is called kalachar yod. However, in the Shulchan Aruch Rav, it's clear, he's discussing another set of halachas, he's discussing having a goy move a candle for you on Shabbos, which generally, if a yid can't move it, the goy can't move it. However, over there he's a bit more makel when it comes to the halachas of muktzah. He says, the principle of Mir Nochri, since the yid can do it beheta, so therefore you can ask a goy to do it. How can a yid do it beheta? He says you can carry the candle bein atzila yoda between your elbows, or galachar yoda, the back of your hand. So he's clear that the back of your hand also is mutter. But kids, I come to the freezer, I open it galachar yodoi, the back of my hand, and I've opened the drawer, and I think I've solved all of my problems, and now my problems just begin. Because on top of the ice cream, there's sitting a frozen chicken. Yeah, that's it.
So you'd have to open the door of the freezer also. Galachiyat.
You're saying
That's your bosses, the bosses according to you, yeah?
right?
The drawer sitting on the shelf of the freezer, and the shelf of the freezer
Okay.
is in the cabinet.
First of all, that would only be if the entire freezer is more Issa than Heta. In other words, there I can use the other shelves as well. If the other shelves have Hetas, then it becomes a boss's Issa or Heta, and then that wouldn't make then the freezer wouldn't be Mukta. Besides that, the dinim of the door become a little bit more complicated. But in Hanami, there is room to say. But yeah, Ishlami, yeah.
There is a cover for the
Right, so generally, any chiluk of an item which is muktzah is also muktzah. So for example, let me just point this out briefly, I don't know what to do with the clock, the Shabbos lamps, so you have the old Shabbos lamps that were around until about a year ago, which was the only one around. Over there, they made it two pieces, one piece. In other words, the piece that you turn, I imagine people know how the Shabbos lamp looks, there's a piece that you would turn, and that piece was attached to the Shabbos lamp. And then later, they stopped doing that. They made that, you've probably noticed if you have one of them, that the piece on top that you turn just comes out. It's not attached in any way. The reason they did that is for halachic reasons, because since there is a tzad to say that a lamp is muktzah, it's not so clear in halacha, the basic word is, the Gemara says shalheves is muktzah, flame is muktzah. The question is what's the hezber? But one way of explaining it, or some ways of explaining it, would tell us that the lamp also has a din of not klisham lachal issa, rather total muktzah. If the lamp has a din of total muktzah, you can't even move a part of it. And therefore, if that piece is attached to the lamp, you wouldn't be able to turn it. So, since some people complain probably that the lamp has, according to many poskim, is muktzah, and therefore the top of it is also muktzah. So what they did was they made it a separate keli. This is a separate keli. This is a keli shavlach teleheta probably. It's a keli, and but once you do have a keli though, which is muktzah, every part of it can't be moved. They now made a new Shabbos lamp, a little bit cheaper, and with where it is attached, and it has a hechsher from a number of mochna technology laloch, I think. But over there, the vort is, the difference is it's an LED light. And according to most poskim, Rubam Kikulam, an LED doesn't have a din of fully muktzah. At worst, it's a klisham lachal issa, and therefore, klisham lachal issa, you're allowed to move it, let's say, in order to move it, and therefore it's okay to be attached. And that would be machmirim that would not use it if your choishes the LED is more than that. The kids, let me get to the din of the freezer very briefly. So the chicken's on the ice cream. So now my question is the ice cream itself muktzah? The ice cream itself is muktzah. So there is room. So the Emma says there is room to be makel, and that is based on the din of the Trumas Hadesh, of the Shoyin and Trumas Hadeshin. The Trumas Hadeshin discusses if I have a drawer. He says a box, but I'll just say more practically a drawer. And in the drawer I have lots of things. I have lots of things. Now there isn't room to put everything on the bottom of the drawer, so I put some things on top of other things. So if I by mistake put, the drawer has all sorts of things, money and other things which are muktzah, and you end up with a situation where there's money sitting on top of a watch. Yeah? So is the watch now a bosses? So the shoyl in the Trumas Hadeshin says no, it's not a bosses. It's not a bosses because I'm not interested the money should be sitting on the watch. I'm interested that the money should be in the drawer. There isn't enough room on the base of the drawer. And therefore... I'm not discussing that. If you put benches in the drawer, and let's say the benches are more valuable than the more worth it, more choshev than the muktzah, so the drawer's okay. But you've ended up putting the muktzah on the benches. So now the question is the bench itself muktzah? Says the Shoyin Trumas Hadeshin, no, because I'm not interested that the muktzah should be on the benches. On the contrary, you're not supposed to put things on benches. It's just there wasn't enough room, it ended up on the benches. So therefore, it's not muktzah. That's what the Shoyin. The Trumas Hadeshin argues and says it is muktzah. In Shulchan Aruch and Simon Shintese, the Magen Avraham involves sides with the shoyl of the Trumas Hadeshin. The Taz sides with the Trumas Hadeshin, that it is muktzah. And the Maisa, the Shulchan Aruch is mekel, that it's not a problem. The Mishnah Berurah says the Eisa Toirich, you can rely on the Mekilim, you can rely on the lenient ones. So the Mela over here, it's Eisa Toirich, there's a Toirich to have the ice cream. So Mela, it's not a basis, I have no interest that the chicken should be on the ice cream. I can just knock it off. And have the ice cream. However, what would be if on Monday afternoon I organized my freezer and I decided the ice cream, I don't need it till next summer. Let's put it at the bottom. The chicken, I want it to be available. For next time I want to make a fleishik supper. So I want it to be on top. Specifically on top of the ice cream in order to be more available. So then already I'd have a shaila. That the ice cream would be a bosses to the chicken. That would already be a shaila because, however, the ice cream itself wouldn't be muktzah. The top of ice cream is muktzah. Because the ice cream isn't serving the chicken, the top is serving the chicken. But mela, the top of the muktzah, I'd have to take out the top of the ice cream I could still eat. However, if it's, let's say, a block of Alpine ice cream, I need the ice cream itself to hold up the chicken. Because it doesn't come in a tub. The Alpine have a block that's just covered with paper. So then I'm using the Michael itself. Over there, if I did it specifically, set it out, the frozen chicken is sitting on the block of ice cream, the ice cream itself would be muktzah. There wouldn't be any way to eat the ice cream Oid chazoin abayit.
Hungry.